Welcome back to another episode of STEM and Stilettos. This is your host, Zofia Morales, and this week we are discussing Rising in the Room, Work, Women in STEM, and Human-Centered Transformation. You're in the right place this week if you've ever wondered how you are going to deal with like the tsunami of change that seems to keep coming through on a regular basis. And it's like, I just figured out what the rules are and now they've all changed again. And if you've ever wondered, how do I start advocating for myself and my ideas without feeling like I'm being difficult or problem child or risking a bunch of organizational pushback? If you've struggled with any of these things, you will enjoy today's guest and today's conversation. I have with me Casey Zaitz. She's a transformation leader known for turning complex change into clear, human-centered progress. With over 20 years' experience, she leads the project management and organizational transformation practice at M&S Consulting, guiding organizations through high-impact digital and organizational shifts. Casey's leadership is rooted in empathy, communication, and a deep commitment to developing people. She's passionate about mentoring the next generation of STEM leaders and creating environments where talent can thrive. Through her work in human change management and process impact blueprinting, she helps teams build confidence, navigate uncertainty, and embrace new ways of working. Casey holds an MS in organizational development from Queen's University of Charlotte. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you here today, Casey.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
So, how did you end up in this world of organizational management? It's not what most kids say they want to be when they grow up.
It wasn't what I said I wanted to be either, but I fell into it when I transitioned into technology at a telecommunications company back early in my career. And I started off as a business analyst, then I transitioned into a project manager, and I really became passionate about the people change management side of technology.
Yes.
I mean, you can have the shiniest, brightest, great platform, software platform ever, but if you don't bring the people along with it and include them in the change along the way, the adoption just isn't going to be there.
Yeah,
And
you're going to have a great big boat anchor
yeah, yeah,
instead of a shiny, new, improved process because, yeah, the people have to be on board before your change actually happens.
yes, yeah. So I just really dug my heels in, my stilettos, if you will, and really made a purposeful journey with my professional development through my master's program and then just onward in my career.
I love that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you dug in your stilettos. Was there some
Mhm.
resistance around you going down this road?
I would say no. When I started going through this journey, our company was being acquired.
Mm,
And it was actually a great opportunity for me to take that environment and that change. It was massive change.
yeah.
And not only was it cultural, but there was process change, there was technology change, all of it converging at one time. Well, I actually did my capstone project for my master's program and developed a methodology to manage all of that change, but really focused in on process to then leverage the technology to enable that process.
Absolutely.
But
And mergers and acquisitions, man, I've been through several. I was in banking for a fair chunk of my career, and every year or so, you've got to assimilate or be assimilated, it seems like in finance nowadays. So, yeah,
yeah,
the melding of culture and technology is not a trivial matter.
no, not at all. And I think over the last 10 years, technology has really taken a front seat in culture across every industry, every organization, and really it's how leadership communicates and embraces technology and leads that change along with their organization.
Interesting. I agree with you on the shift to more of a tech focus than a people and process focused sort of management orientation. Do you find that to be overall a net good or not so good shift?
I think it's a net good if it's done in the right way.
Okay.
And that's really where you have to bring the people along with you. And you have to really explain the why. Why are we doing this? What is the impact to you and your job? Because most people are really concerned with how does it impact me? And from a leadership perspective, if you can articulate that and engage your employees in that change, I think that the adoption and the success of those transformations will really take flight and people will be really excited about it.
I like that. How do you start to get people excited about that? How do you start to bring people along with change like that? Most people are pretty change averse when it comes to what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of times it seems scary, especially when you're in like a mergers and acquisitions situation where you're not sure, are you duplicated up on the other side with someone else? Do they have a list of people they're going to be whacking, right? There's a lot of hesitancy that happens in that environment.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing as a leadership team is to really come up with what is the why? Why are we doing this? And what I have found helping to navigate leadership teams is to have them pick two groups of people and small groups.
Mhm.
You're going to have people who are more of like your change ambassadors. They're the ones who are going to be advocates for change, have really big, bold ideas, and people look up to them.
Yes.
The other group are your naysayers or the people who are really adverse to change.
Hmm.
I want both of those people involved in whatever this initiative is. And what I have found to be very successful is bringing them together in the very beginning and having them map out what are we challenged with today? What are the things we're trying to tackle? And then come up with what does tomorrow look like? And I kid you not, I have had somebody walk in the door and say, "Oh, I can't wait to talk about my pain points again." Because people do, but then nothing's done with it,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Exactly.
And
And I think there's also a predisposition, if you will, to only have in the room the people who are like gung ho and change embracing because
mhm,
they've got this amazing wealth of ideas and the enthusiasm and all of that. But I don't think you get a balanced picture if
right.
they're the only ones in the room. So what you're doing is brilliant.
Yeah. The folks who are more adverse to change, don't move my cheese, I like things just the way they are. They're the ones who, once you get them on board and listen to them and have them be a part of the new ideas and the conversation, they actually become your biggest advocates.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who people listen to as well. They may be the squeaky wheel in the beginning, coming into these discussions, but they're also respected within the organization and people listen. So if you can get them on board and really break down those barriers, you've got just this amazing team who is going to then lead the rest of the organization through that change.
I love that. How big of a group does this need to be when you say a group? I assume it has a little bit to do with the size of the organization involved, but I think there's probably a cap on what's functional as well. So, what do you know?
Yeah, I think it also depends on what kind of change are we after.
Right.
And if you look at a CRM or an ERP, I usually look for one or two people from each department. And this is really key. If you don't have all the people in the room who this change may impact, you're already
You've shot
at a
yourself in the
disservice.
foot.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely. Yeah, and you need to have all those voices in a room because you're otherwise making decisions for people who are not there to speak and advocate for themselves. So,
Exactly. About processes that you probably know at a high level, but you don't understand the day-to-day workings of. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and they have to be the end users. They have to be like those high flyers and then the naysayers, from each department and allow them to come together. And really, it's me just facilitating a conversation. They're doing all the hard work, but it becomes so collaborative and everybody buys in to what that future state looks like because they did it together. It's not somebody
Yes.
telling them what they have to do or how they need to do it.
Exactly. My boss had a saying for us when we would get one of these edicts from up on high. It comes down and it's like, that shit's not going to work. He says, well, this is what we're doing. They've made this decision not being hindered by knowledge in any way.
Right.
Okay, all right. So let's make the best of a bad deal here.
Exactly. Yeah. And I will say too, when I do these workshops, I actually don't want leadership in the room because they have a preconceived notion on how things are being done today, but they really don't know all of the things like where the skeletons are buried, where people are doing things outside the system or outside the process that's on paper, so to speak.
Yes.
And that really helps the teams to speak freely and to get ideas flowing and talk openly where maybe sometimes they may not feel like they can if all the leadership's in the room. And then at the end of the workshop, we always bring leadership in to do a readout. And it's sometimes very eye-opening to the leadership that wow, I didn't realize things were like this right now, but it looks like you have a great plan to move forward.
Yeah, exactly. And coming from a large organization where there was a significant culture of subject matter experts who knew what had to happen in their brain, but it was not written down. I think these sorts of initiatives are great opportunities to open those doors and to start to get that sort of thing documented so that you don't have to go around the system to make the system work.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
I love that. Wow. So we brought our teams into the room. We've got some buy-in, we've got a plan, we're implementing.
Hmm.
Do we need to go to all this trouble?
We do. We
Yeah, I mean, really, because a lot of times it seems like a shit ton of extra effort for I should just be able to send a memo and make this happen. What's missing when you're thinking that way?
Yeah, I think that we have to look at people like a human operating system. And there's inputs, there's outputs. And if we don't inform along the way, people feel left out. And one of the things I've been doing with one of our clients is coming up with a regular monthly, just some news snippets in their monthly newsletter. And it really means a world of difference because people chatter, right?
Mm-hmm.
People say, oh, we're working on this. And those who may be on the periphery of that, they want to better understand, well, what's going on? How is this going to impact me? And we may not be ready to tell them all of that just yet. We're still working it out. But as long as we communicate along the way, and it doesn't take long to come up with some little newsletter blurb, right?
Right.
And just keep people informed. They appreciate it. And it's meaningful, it's very low effort. And then once you get to the change, it's not as dramatic. It's not as people don't feel
Shocking.
like, yeah, they
Yeah.
don't feel blindsided by it.
Yeah. And I think here's a thing that people tend to forget, right? When you've got these initiatives that you're not ready to tell the whole world about yet, and it's still kind of formative, we forget that humans are meaning makers. We will fill in that information vacuum.
Yes.
And more often than not, the grapevine fills it in with stuff that's scary, that's wrong, that does not support where you're trying to go. And it can literally become a cancer that will stop your initiative from moving forward if you just leave people in this information vacuum and they have to make up their own stories about it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. People come up with their own narrative
Hmm.
and they're going to fill in those gaps. And that's why it's really important to be very intentional about the communication that you're sending out and when you're sending it out. Sometimes it's not appropriate to talk about, well, processes are changing, so that means some roles and responsibilities are changing. That's scary. I mean, if I had heard that, what is my job going away? Especially
Uh-huh.
with all of AI and automating of processes. What does that mean for me? And so we want to control the narrative so that people don't get nervous, and they shouldn't, right?
But in a vacuum of information, they're going to make something up. And
Right.
what we're hearing nowadays in the news is AI is coming in and taking all these jobs, despite the
Yeah.
fact that most businesses haven't seen a return on investment or even a process improvement related to implementing AI in their organization yet. But it sounds good when you tell the investors this is why we're laying people off.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And really, when you go through this change management, we always look for opportunities. Okay, AI and all this automation, it's supposed to enhance, right?
Yes.
It's supposed to enhance the work that you're doing and keep you from doing all this mundane, repetitive data entry so you can think critically. We hired
Yes.
you for a reason, and we want you to focus on the more critical tasks that this repetitive process is not going to handle. And that's really where you can focus on repurposing or kind of realigning your team members.
Absolutely. So we are up on our first break already. What would be a good thought exercise for the listeners as we go into this sponsorship moment?
I would say think about a change that you implemented before and what worked, what didn't, and what were the missteps of why it wasn't successful. And just think through some of the things that we just talked about around just pure communication. And somebody told me once that communication at its finest is inadequate. And so we really need to live by that and try to keep people informed along the way.
I love that. So spend a few minutes on a debrief around a change that you've brought forward, whether it succeeded, didn't succeed, how much it succeeded, what were the contributing factors to that, and have your little debrief. Hang with us, and we'll be right back from the break.
Oh, check it out, we'll hear. Tech is ours and we show no fear. No fear. No fear. No fear.
Thanks for hanging in with us through the break. This is Zofia Morales. I'm back with the amazing and wonderful Casey Zaitz. And before the break, she asked us to spend a little time on a change that we've recently moved in or through the organization or experienced within the organization. What worked with that, what didn't work with that. So when we're looking at a debrief right like this, when we're thinking about maybe trying to advocate for some kind of a change in our organization, what kind of barriers or challenges do you see people facing when they're bringing forward a new idea that should, on the face of it, improve things?
Yeah. I see a lot of organizations, we do a lot of rescue and recovery.
Change gone wrong.
Yeah. And what we find is that there wasn't enough emphasis on management of the change, right?
Mm,
Or the project management side, or hey, we can do that ourselves. And when you have invested so much money in software and a new platform that you're moving forward with, it's not just the actual dollars, it's the time, right?
mm-hmm.
And you really need to do it right and do it right from the beginning. Otherwise, there's rework, there's more spend, right? And so what we find is people just did not put enough emphasis or investment in managing the change and project management. And those can be one and the same, actually. They don't need to be separate roles, but we really find that project management should be looking holistically at the people side of the change and helping the organization navigate through some of that and working with them on how best to make sure that adoption is at its highest. And a lot of that comes from, again, the communication piece. It comes from adequate training and ensuring there's operational readiness. And there's lots of factors that go into operational readiness, but if there's anything that really has a red flag, you really need to pause because it does have a negative impact on the implementation itself.
Yeah. When I was in my first big corporation, they were actually pretty good on a lot of fronts. And there was a huge, what do I want to say, a huge reservoir of organizational understanding because people had been there for a very long time. And being a change agent, kind of naturally, I'm the one who's like, why do we do it this way and not this other way? And I found gathering the information around why it is the way it is now and things that were tried to shift that or change that towards like the idea that I was proposing. It was great because what they would do is say, oh, someone tried that before and it didn't work. And most people just drop the conversation at that point and go, okay, I'm not beating my head against this wall. Whereas I would continue down that road and go, why? What exactly happened that it did not work? Was there resistance from some party? Did it marry into another process and didn't do a good job of that? What was the thing that killed it? And a lot of times it would be a politics sort of thing, or that the benefit of it hadn't been communicated to the other side, or the other side had an idea that we would have to put some money in it, and that's going to be more expensive than just having a dedicated operator to X, Y, and Z. And so having gathered all that information gave me the tools that I needed to make the change better, to make it more acceptable within the organization, to win over the people that needed to be won over for the implementation to happen, and to actually get it out into the world to garner the resources behind that. So I think there's a lot to be said for gathering that organizational intelligence. And if you have the position to say, okay, I'm going to put together some groups, we're going to formally work on that, fabulous. But you can also do that as a one-person show. I did it successfully as a one-person show for quite a while in my career before I finally was at a position where they gave you like budgets and direct reports and that sort of thing. So if you're out there going, you know, I don't have the formal support of my organization behind me in terms of budget, dollar, and head count, that doesn't have to stop you.
Right. Exactly.
I like to get that out there because it's easy to listen to something like this and go, yeah, but I'm just a fill in the blank computer operator is what I was when I started. And I got a lot of stuff done that was way above my pay grade because of the communication and getting all of the facts and making sure that all of the stakeholders were aligned on this stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's remarkable what you can do with very little. I know that you have an outlined approach that you like to use. I think you call it process impact blueprinting.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that methodology and how that supports an inclusive collaboration and really supercharges being able to get good work done in an organization and support diversity as well.
Yeah. The first comment I want to make is anybody can be a change agent. They really can.
Yeah.
And the process impact blueprinting, I explained a little bit of it earlier, and let me kind of bring it all together. It's roughly 3 days, right? And you can't build a house without a blueprint, right?
Amen.
You can't build a roof until you have the walls and the basement. And these workshops really bring the right people together, the end users. And like I said, you have to have the high flyers, the people who really think bold ideas, who really know that process inside and out. And then you need to bring some naysayers in there as well. And those are the folks who are really going to be resistant to change, but you have to bring them along. You have got to get them engaged, get them to be a part of the solution and the ideas. And the last, I would say, part of that formula is making sure that you have representation from everyone that process that you're reviewing touches. Because if you don't, You're not understanding the inputs and outputs and dependencies. And really, you're making decisions for people who are not there to speak about the process that they own. So the first day, we really talk about the current state process, and we're whiteboarding. This is something that I think is so critical to this process. We have big whiteboards up, and my rule is if you're going to say it, you have to draw it. And
Aha.
it gets people up and out of their seat. It gets them engaged. It gets them drawing what their process is. It's not me. I'm not the one up there with the marker and whatnot.
And trying to interpret or unfortunately misinterpret what they're trying to tell you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just asking a lot of questions. Like you said earlier, why do you do it this way? That's the way we've always done it. Or somebody told me that's how it was supposed to be done. And so when we take a look at that overall current state process, we're also making a big list of pain points, all the different systems that are used. And of course, Excel is the number one most widely used system, right?
Well, and it has some advantages, right? It's very
Yeah,
simple. Most people can get their arms around the idea of a spreadsheet and what it means and are able to update their data within something like that. Whereas if you bring something new or more complicated or that has less wide familiarity, now you've got to train the people to use the tool to track the thing and not
yep,
just fix the process or improve the process that you want to focus on.
right. And we could do a whole segment on why it's so important to do it in the system. But anyway, I think that getting everybody to really look at that holistic current process, right? And so the second day is chunking that out into smaller bits, breaking up smaller groups and say, you just focus on this one chunk. I just want you to focus on this. And if you really in utopia could make this the best process ever, what would you do to change it? And so I break folks up and have them whiteboard what that future state looks like and talk about how we improve. We have all heard of like waste in
Hmm.
processes, right? How do we improve back and forth? How do we improve wait time? How do we improve first time quality where I have everything I need to hand off to the next person so they can start their job? And that's really where you become efficient. And that's really where you can take that repetitive work and have it flow through the pipeline seamlessly and leverage those critical thinking skills for the things that really you should be spending your time on.
I love that.
And then day 3 is bringing leadership back in. And by this point, people are really excited and they're proud. There's a level of pride when people have worked really hard. And I will tell you, full disclosure, it's exhausting. You're in a room together for a full days, and it's exhausting. And the leadership comes in and, okay, tell me what you guys cooked up here. What do you have? What are your ideas? And each group will then talk about where they're coming from and what that future state looks like for their part of the process. And they're excited. There's a camaraderie, there's teamwork, there's collaboration. And one of the biggest rules, though, is what we talk about in this room. It's like Vegas rules. What we talk about in this room stays in this room until we're ready to communicate it out to the larger organization or these departments in a way that is going to be meaningful and going to get people excited about what's to come.
Yeah, I know having been through some of this stuff, it can be hard to leave that sort of thing in the room. But here's what I've found. If you drag it out of the room prematurely,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now it starts to look to people on the outside. You can't make up your mind, right? Because some of the initial stuff that people were excited about or whatever will turn out to not have legs once you start like diving down into it, or you'll present it to management who will be like, oh, that's an unintended consequence that we don't like, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the Vegas rules are pretty important around something like this because you don't want to poop on your improvement
Mhm.
by confusing people about what it is, what it means, and where it's going.
Right. Yeah, and you have to really come up with a good communication plan and be thoughtful around how you're presenting all those pieces, right? And I think that there's a time and a place for everything. And if it is communicated out prematurely, that's really where the resistance, well, why wasn't I in the room? Or all these decisions are being made about my role and I have no input. And that's not entirely true. Some of it is, but bringing people into the process, like testing before even training occurs and stuff like that, that's other ways to get people engaged early in the process and getting them excited. And then you start to spread that excitement and also get other opinions and feedback as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I love the process. I love the structure. I love the Vegas rules. All of these, they mesh nicely and they resonate with what my experience has been
Yeah.
as a serial implementer of change. How does your process give a stronger voice to women, to early career professionals, and really support diversity?
Yeah, I think that this process really lends to diversity. It really lends to bringing different voices to the table to ensure that you're looking at things from different perspectives. I mean, we've all heard about when you have the same types of people sitting around a table, there's no creativity, there's no new ideas coming. So you really have to look at the folks who are going to attend this workshop and be a part of the overall project team as well. You have to have a different voice come to the table. You have to have different perspectives because, frankly, if you don't, you're going to continue to make the same mistakes over and over again, and you'll never get fresh ideas.
Yeah,
And
isn't
really,
that the truth?
yeah,
We're,
and that's what transformation's
yeah,
about, right?
exactly. We're up on our second break already.
Okay.
Can you believe that? What should we think about over this coming break?
I think a great idea to noodle on is how do you engage different ideas? How do you get them excited? How do you engage different people who may have been quiet in the past? You bring them into this process because you know they're really good at what they do, but how do you sometimes you got to draw it out? What are some tactics that you use to get people engaged in some of these bigger workshop type discussions?
I love that. All right, so spend some time thinking about strategies you can use to increase engagement and hang with us. We'll be right back.
Oh, check it out, the wolf here. Tech is ours and we show no fear. No fear. No fear. No fear.
Thanks for hanging in with us through the break. This is Zofia Morales, and I'm back with Casey Zaitz. So, Casey, you asked us to do a little thought over the break
Mhm.
about ways we can engage people in process change and that sort of thing. Boy, brain blank. How we can get people engaged in the process, and made the case shortly before that that it does improve the diversity of an organization, or at least the perceptions of the people who normally aren't seen in organizations. If you're dealing with someone who's an aspiring leader who wants to see more diversity come up through the ranks along with them, what kind of advice do you offer to young women who are earlier in their career, who are working their way into leadership and guiding things like this as part of their stepping stone?
Yeah, that's a great question because I was there at one point in my career, and I've had some really great mentors throughout my career. And my number one top piece of advice is to get a mentor. And your mentor doesn't necessarily have to be female. I've had some great allies, some fantastic male allies in my career. And as you know, technology is really difficult to rise up in the ranks from a woman's perspective. But I've had some really great mentors along the way. I would also say that it's really important to not be afraid to speak your voice, and you don't have to have all the answers. I think that's something that we as women, it's a pitfall almost where we feel like we need to check all the boxes. If you're looking to move up in your organization and there's a position that oh, I'd really love to do this, but I don't check all the boxes that like the job description has. That's okay. And I encourage young women in their careers to don't worry about checking all the boxes, because the whole purpose of developing as a professional and even personally is to learn. And I would say 90% of how I've come to where I am in my career, I've learned that on the job.
Yeah.
And you just need to find somebody who's going to give you that chance to bring your skills and your passion and put it out on the table. And you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. You fail fast, as they say.
Yes, exactly.
But that's how we learn.
Let's rewind a little bit. I think
Yeah.
get a mentor sounds simple on its face, but I think it stymies a lot of people.
Yeah.
How do you go get a mentor? Who do you aim for? How do you invite them into that interaction? What's in it for them?
Yeah. I think that there's a couple different ways you can get a mentor. The first mentor that I had, it was somebody who I really respected in my organization, somebody who I looked up to. She was a powerhouse, still is, but she's a powerhouse. And she was well respected by her peers as well. And she was actually my executive sponsor for my capstone project for grad school. And she had confidence, and I just wanted a little piece of how do you do that? But I went and asked her. I put myself out there, made myself a little bit vulnerable, and I asked her if she would be my mentor. And she was excited. She was thrilled. And I think that people are afraid to ask the question. You're asking for help, right? And sometimes that's very hard to do. And you need to make yourself vulnerable and ask for help. And you'll find people are very willing to do that. The other way I would say is
and can I throw something in there?
Yeah, please.
If you ask the question and they come back and they're like, nope, count yourself blessed that they said no and go find someone else.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
That tells you a lot about them that maybe you didn't realize.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. The other thing I would say is get involved in your community. And there's several STEM outreach programs. I belong to SIM, Society of Information Management, the local chapter here in Charlotte. And there's a group of women. We said, you know what? We need a Charlotte chapter for SIM, but SIM women, where we can have a community and a safe place to bring ideas and other women to the table and talk about things in our careers, talk about ways that we can lift each other up, support one another, and then take that and bring that into the local communities for our younger generations. So I would say look for organizations in your community that support women in tech or whatever industry you're in, healthcare, finance, and you will find just a treasure trove of possible mentors, but just people who've been there before and you can bounce ideas off of and give back, right? You want to give back full circle. And there's some young lady who is coming up in her career, or maybe she's not even there yet. Maybe she's in high school or college, and she's looking for someone. How did you get to where you are? So give back. That's probably one of the best things and most rewarding.
Yeah, I love that. What do you say to someone who says, I'm part of my local industry group, but it's not women specific? Is it important to seek out women specific support?
I think so. I think there's a healthy balance. I think that there's certain things that you probably may not feel comfortable talking about with men in the room. I mean, let's just be honest. And there's going to be some other lady in the room who has been where you've been and how did they handle certain situations. And sometimes you just don't want to talk about that with men in the room, right?
Yeah, exactly. How do we juggle pickup from daycare?
Yeah.
A lot of times the guys will be impatient with that, but it's not a personal topic. It's actually a career topic
Yeah.
in a
Well,
lot of ways that are not acknowledged.
yeah. And us ladies, and if you're a mom as well, you probably have two or three full-time jobs. You have your job that you get a paycheck from, you get paid to do. I'm a full-time Uber driver for my kids, and I'm a full-time mom and a wife, and I'm different things to different people. And some people may not be able to relate to that. So you need to find a community that can relate, has been there, and can offer guidance and support. And you need to have a healthy balance because, as I mentioned before, I had really great male allies in my professional career who really supported me along the way. And I think you need them too, right? Really finding the ones who will lift you up, encourage you, and also will help, course correct too. And I really respect those folks who have helped me along the way.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So, what advice would you give your younger self if you could like rewind to the earliest part of your career? What advice would you give yourself that would have moved you along faster or kept you from stepping into an unfortunate pothole?
Oh, man, that's a loaded question. I would say two things. I would say keep your cool, but go get it. Don't be afraid to stumble along the way, but go get it. And I think that I had quite a bit of hesitation early on in my career. I also, were immature, and being able to keep your cool, keep your composure when things are not going right or the way that you want them to, I would definitely tell my younger self it will be okay. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
love that. So, if a listener or a dozen listeners is inspired by your work, your mentorship, or has a project that needs rescuing,
There's a lot of them out there.
what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way. We also have our company website, M&S Consulting. You can find me under the leadership team and reach out to me that way. And I think that we can share my work email as well. Any of these ways, please reach out. I'm happy to have a conversation, and even if it's just a chat.
Absolutely. And we'll have all of that spelled out in the show notes. So you don't need to worry about a pen and paper for that right now.
Yes.
So, in the last like 60 seconds, what would be your final words of wisdom to the listeners?
Yes. I think my final words of wisdom are bring people together, because there's so much more power as a whole than in individual pieces. And we need to hear people's opinions, people's feedback, so that we can really move forward in a very creative, forward thinking way. And if we don't bring that diversity and bring those different voices to the room, then your organization, or even personally, you're not going to move forward, and you're going to stay where you are pretty stagnant. So bring the ideas, bring people together. It's how we all move forward and create that transformation, that progress that everybody gets so excited about.
I love that. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me here today for this discussion.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for tuning in today. I know you have a dozen different ways you could have spent this time, and I'm honored that you've invested it in listening to this show and your own career development and moving yourself forward. I would love to hear your reactions to the show. You can put that in the comments below the video, or you can shoot me a quick email to zofia@steminstilettos.com. Let me know what you loved, what you hated, who I should talk to next. And until next week, go out, be bold, be beautiful, and be authentically you.